Hey, this is BA and welcome to Economic Trend. And what we're going to be doing here is taking a look at stock markets overall. Now, I know our interest is primarily in FOREX and currency pairs and all that stuff, but there's things that impact the country as a whole. This is known as fundamentals or fundamental analysis or whatever. And there's techniques to tell what's going to happen to any specific country. But in order to start that ball rolling, we really need to get behind the causation of the business cycle itself, okay? Because where we're coming at right now, and this is early 2016, is you got China slowing. Business, there's some warning signs out there that businesses are starting to slow and all that stuff. Why is all that occurring? We're going to get into that. We're going to find that out. We're going to work with that. Let's get started. Luther Jensen was employed by W.D. GANN from the 1930s until GANN's death in 1955. This makes Luther Jensen's book, Astrocycles and Speculative Markets, important. And it's also in that book how he's going to show you how the methods I'm going to present here are applicable to specific countries. I don't have the time to get into that. Okay, so once again, I know the Forex contains our interest. I'm going to show you the methodology, and you could apply it to the country of your choice. Okay, so you'll know what's impacting that currency coming up. The sunspot cycle. The work financed by Harvard Committee on Research in Social Sciences has resulted in tracing this correlation from the 17th century South Sea bubble down to the present year. The last sunspot cycle began with a minimum of spots in 1923, a maximum in 1928 to 29, and another minimum in 1933-1934. Another maximum point is expected late in 38. Now, why is this important? Well, it's this. Low sunspots, low sunspot numbers, low economic lulls. High sunspot numbers, increasing economic activity. Low sunspot numbers declining, decreasing economic activity. Let's take a look at this area with the stock market. Okay, a minimum, which means a low in sunspots 1923. The market low was 1922. A maximum of sunspots in 1928-29. The market peaked in 29. Another minimum in 1933-34. The market low was 1932, but 1933 was kind of sideways. Another maximum point expected late in 38. Well, the peak in the market was in 37-38. Okay, so you can see right off that there's this correlation here. Okay, and this is from Luther Jensen's book, Astrocycles and Speculative Markets, page 36. A synthesis of the relationships by aspect and sign positions of Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus, plus the sunspot cycle, is the framework upon which to project the primary trends of business and markets. Okay, what he's saying here is critical. He's saying take the sunspot cycle and combine it with what's known as the financial planets, Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus, and you'll get the larger trend. Okay, this is from page 122 in his book. In our annual trend projection estimates issued and copyrighted in December annually for the forthcoming year, cyclic estimates again proved themselves. For example, 1974, at the end of 73, was a chaotic prospect after February was out of the way, as Jupiter would begin to move toward a square of Saturn, and in April, a weak trine of retrograde Uranus to Saturn would begin to shift to a square. These are bearish elements intensified by the node moving through Sagittarius all year, the opposition area to our Gemini critical point. Forecast projection, firming early in the year, late May peak, September low. Let's take a look at another example. See there, he was using the planets, the financial planets. The 1974 market trends confirmed the 1932 to 65 upward major trend had reversed to a major downward trend, and its first decline made in 1966. However, an intermediate upward trend correction should follow and be of considerable magnitude in prices and quite lengthy in time. In the projected trend estimates for 1975 issued and copyrighted in December 1974, a peak was anticipated May 29th when a strong square, which is 90 degrees, of Jupiter and Saturn occurred and repeated in late June and again in mid-July. By December, with Jupiter turning direct the 11th, the upward swing was projected to resume. Okay, so you can see how he's using these financial plans. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to set up some basic rules, and then we're going to set out to prove them. It's really cool. Let's begin by looking at sunspots first. Keep in mind that sunspot activity is claimed by Jensen to be the underpinnings of the business cycle. To measure the business cycle, we will use the stock market, which is not exactly a pure match, but is readily available to you, the viewer. Okay. 1974, stock market low over here. 1975, low in sunspots over here, barely on the chart. Okay, we kind of go up and then sideways for about 8 years here. Okay, and then in 8 years we're in the 900 to 1,000 range here, and then we jump up to about the 1,200 range here until 86 when we get the sunspots turning up, and look at what happened. Okay, now this area, although this was gaining momentum, it was peaked out. These were known as the Jimmy Carter years, and that's a whole different story. And there's other things that occurred in there that we're not going to get into. Okay, there was bad aspects here. Okay, we're not going to really get into it, but there's bad aspects. We'll learn what those are here in a minute. And that's what created this sideways move. So when you replay this video, come back to this and look at this area, and you'll see that. Okay. Same with here. It gets canceled out to about here, and then all hell breaks loose, and we start heading up. This is 1990 to current. Note that the sunspot cycle went down. We kind of went sideways with an upward bias until this point, and then we go rocketing up here. We kind of peak out here. We'll find out why in a minute. We go down here. Then we get caught in this crazy thing known as the debt bubble. Okay. And the debt bubble doesn't go along with this because this is economic activity. Okay. And this is why the stock market's not really a accurate barometer per se, but we get this peak here and then we go down, but we get a rising market here. Well, we know what happens here. Okay, we come down here, slamming down, because this is like built up on stilts. Okay, the whole thing was a mirage. I knew about that 2 years in advance. I warned people about it that far back. It was easy to see, easy to spot, and I'll tell you what, I made a ton of money in U.S. Steel put options because I played this whole thing, man. It was some of the best trading I ever did in my life. Okay, so anyway, enough on that. We go down to about 2010 and sunspot cycles start heading up here. Okay, this is where we're at now. We've peaked in sunspot activity. Okay, we've peaked in sunspot activity and we're heading down. Now, to put this into perspective, think of all the businesses out there that are going out today and getting loans. This is early 2016. Think about that, because they have no idea what's coming. Okay. The minimum sunspots is 2020, 2022 area down here. Okay. We'll talk more about that real quick here. So we can readily see there is a direct correlation. The next step is to combine this with the planets Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus. Rule number 1. Favorable aspects between the planets are deemed to be 60 and 120 degrees. Unfavorable, also known as hard aspects, are 45, 90, 135, and 180. Jupiter conjunct Uranus is favorable. Jupiter conjunct Saturn is unfavorable. Saturn conjunct Jupiter, or for that matter anything else, is unfavorable. Rule number 2. Increasing sunspots. When you have increasing sunspots and you have favorable aspects with the planets, you'll get upward thrusts. And we'll take a look at that in a minute. We'll take a look at all this in a minute. When you have increasing sunspots and you have unfavorable planetary aspects, you'll get a sideways to a slight downward biased market. Okay? When you have decreasing sunspots and you have favorable aspects, you will produce sideways market or a small rally. And because the two kind of cancel each other out. When you have decreasing sunspots and you have unfavorable planetary aspects, you will produce large downdrafts. I mean, when it heads down, you saw that in the 2008, 2009 market area. You saw that, man. Decreasing sunspots. We were up on stilts, and boom, we got an unfavorable, and I'll show you that in a minute, and we went slamming down. It was easy to see, and it was fun to trade. Okay. here you go. This is, I really started about in this area and just followed along here. But what you need to do is you need to process more years of the market yourself in this manner. This is just, I only have so much time to show you kind of the skeleton and bones of the whole thing. Okay. We went, the green here is favorable aspects and the red are unfavorable. Here's our infamous debt bubble here in the yellow. Jupiter 60 Uranus kicked off the bull market. Okay. And the sunspot that happened there, and the sunspots went up, and boom, it just got better and better and better up until the party was over with Saturn 90 degrees Uranus, summer of 1999, which stopped the upward trend. We still had a little bit of sunspot peak left. We went sideways because we had good sunspots and bad planetary aspects. And then we kind of went downhill because everything went. Then this wonderful thing called the debt bubble came along. And that was I remember that low in about 2004. And we went up into this area. And guess what happened? Guess when the party was over? Saturn 180 Uranus, just like Jensen tells us, into the debt party. We went slamming down. I mean, slamming down. That was fun. Okay. The Saturn Uranus wore off and the sunspots started to come back, and we get this rise here. Okay. Well, now we're up in this area. Sunspots peaked out in 2015. They're heading down to the 2020, 2022 area. Okay. Go to that area and look at the planetary aspects. It'll blow your mind. That's why it's going to be a massive economic low, and I'm calling it 4 to 6 years in advance. Okay. Also notice while we're going up, okay, going up with sunspots, that we get this Jupiter 60 Uranus, and look what happened here. Wham. Look what happened here. Wham. Okay. So as you can see, this all proves out. You just need to do process more years like this. Okay. This is the 1930s, okay? We had, as Jensen said, it peaked out 28, 29 with sunspots. It started heading down, and the sunspots went down to 1933 area. Our peak was in 29. Again, we were up on stilts because this had already peaked and was heading down. We got up on stilts again because everyone knows it's only going to go up. Profits are assured. And boom, I bet you that was fun to ride down. And no, I wasn't alive to do it, or I would have. Okay, Saturn 90 Uranus. These guys get pummeled. Jupiter 180 Saturn. These are all in red. Jupiter 90 Uranus, Saturn 90 Uranus, Jupiter 180 Saturn. These guys were in red. And each year got worse and worse as this stellium hung on. Okay, these guys were decimated. We went from about the 360, which is a circle area, down to 40, which is another important number. So we lost roughly about 90% of the market. Okay, 90%. Now that is massive. And that's because of this. It was forecasted by GANN. If I would have been alive back then, I could have forecasted this having just the knowledge of this video. Okay, just the knowledge of this video. Awesome stuff here. If you have gained insight from my video, subscribe so you can get the latest on my free market calls, forecast, commentary, and teachings. Knowledge is priceless. Hey, this is BA reminding you can succeed. Take care. Bye-bye.